Ernie?
Okay, Anna Julia Cooper.
Let's talk about Anna Julia.
And for people who at least live in the D.C. area, I just want to point out that there is a play right now at Arena Stage in Washington, D.C. that runs through Sunday on her life. And there's never been any kind of story told. And I just went recently, and it's incredibly powerful. So if you get an opportunity, definitely try to catch that. But Anna Julia Cooper is a name that you throw it out, and 99% of people don't have any clue who she is. Well, if you have a U.S. passport, there is only one woman who is quoted in the U.S. passport. There's 13 men, but only one woman, and that woman is Anna Julia Cooper. She is phenomenal when you think about the time. She also, the connectivity, as I said, between Ida B. Wells, Anna Julia Cooper, Josephine St. Pierre, Mary Church Terrell, Harriet Tubman, all these women knew each other intimately. They worked together. They were in various clubs together. But Anna Julia Cooper is particularly interesting because of her stand on education and the time where Booker T. Washington was basically providing his view of what, I guess, how we achieve Black advancement versus her view. And her view was, forget that, the trades are fine, but that we should shoot for the stars, being engineers, architects, doctors, lawyers. There was nothing that should limit our path to excellence. And that was something which was against the grain, in the same way that teaching Black history and truth-telling goes against the grain right now, at a time that was very politically charged. So she actually was the principal of the M Street School in D.C., which is now Dunbar High School in D.C., and just was an incredible thinker. She, in 1890, she debated some of the top white male intellectuals of the day. 1892, she published a series of essays called Voices from the South by a Black woman from the South. I mean, folks weren't calling themselves Black in 1892. So, this is revolutionary kind of thinking. And most importantly, her formula for the advancement of this country and Black people was grounded in Black women.
I love it. I just love it. And I just think Anna Julia Cooper is one of those figures. Again, Anna Julia Cooper is one of those figures that people listening, you want to study her. You want to share her story with your daughters, with your sons, with your family members, with your community, because she's just that powerful. Who else do we want to lift up out of your list, Professor Quarles, that we would like to make sure that people investigate, learn more about them? And then I have one figure that I want to add to the list.
Sure. I think Zora Neale Hurston is critically important because she comes not only out of this country's greatest period of intellectual, creative arts, you name it, accomplishments. I mean, the Harlem Renaissance was that period that Zora Neale Hurston came through. She was influenced by many. She worked with people like Langston Hughes and others, and she's had a rebirth in terms of the significance of her writing. But most importantly, the reason why she's so critically important for people to learn about and read is because of the book banning. Zora Neale Hurston is on that same list of banned authors as Toni Morrison.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Oh, yes. And their eyes were watching God, Barracoon, all of her amazing work that she did as part of the Harlem Renaissance. So of all these black women that are out there, let's talk about some that are profound that people don't know about, never heard their names. I have no clue. I want to start with Callie House. Callie House, Callie House. Many people don't know her story, but do you know that she had the largest African American largest African American organization, period, in the early 1900s, because Callie House and others were advocates for reparations. And she was one of the first black women to join in a reparations lawsuit, trying to force the nation, this government, to recompense African Americans for slavery. She was, and of course for the Jim Crow era that she was living in, and she was amazing. And Callie House not only advocated for reparations and taught, and most of what people do today in advocating for reparations, she laid that framework. Her movement was bigger than Garvey's movement originally. And and she had hundreds of thousands of African American followers. And of course, the FBI targeted her for persecution before Garvey, and they actually were able to charge her with mail fraud. And because African Americans were sending dues and memberships, and at that time they just would always come up with some kind of mail fraud argument to stop the building of black movements. So Callie House, everybody, a name you ought to know. Dianne, what's the name for you that people ought to know?
I'm not sure. I have a whole list in a file that I can't even pull up now. So because they're all people that I have taken from the Black History Month reports that you were doing over the years.
Yes,
I'm actually trying to find my file, and I can't find it right now because I learned so much, like most of us do. Most of the Black history that I learned as an adult.
Right.
Not in the general matriculation in school.
But that brings me to a subject that I know you want to talk about, and that is, why do you think there's such a fervent, ugly assault going on right now throughout this nation and so many states on the teaching of Black history? Why are they banning books about Ruby Bridges, Fannie Lou Hamer, Diane Nash, Coretta Scott King, Ruby Dee? Why are they banning books and trying to suppress people's knowledge of the history of Black women and Black people in this country? Why are they doing it? What is it that they fear? Ernie?
Wow. I'm glad you asked that question, because I went up on Facebook, and you see these conversations, and sometimes I don't even know who these folks are, but I just figure somehow I've got to help inform them. But they were asking pretty much that same question, and my response was, when people erase or dismiss the ugliness of the world, they are unable to deal with the ugliness inside them. And this is what book banning and restriction on America's truth-telling in schools really is all about.
And Dianne?
Yeah.
Thank you, Ernie.
So Barbara, I do want to, people know I'm like a sports fan. I love sports of every kind. And so I actually was just thinking about, hold on, I'm going to tell you the name, Mamie Johnson, in part because she has the same surname as my mom. She was the first, the only female pitcher in the Negro Baseball League.
That's right.
Yep.
Right.
And she's born in the same year as my mom in 35, in fact.
That's something.
And just think about that. You know,
Yeah.
I think about the people like Ruby Bridges. We know her story, but just more than knowing the story, put yourself in her position. 6 years old, having to be escorted to school every day by guards and police, spending a whole school year in a classroom by yourself because all of the people around you, all of the white parents said they did not want their children. You know, I think so much of this in the same classroom as her. Ernie, I think you're right. I think it's about fear. You know, every place and space we're in, when we get an opportunity, we make it better. And they know that. Just looking at the history tells you that, right? So if you don't, if you don't talk about it, we talk about Harriet Tubman a lot, right? We talk about her a lot. The reason the Harriet Tubman story that resonates with me was the fact that she had brain surgery at Mass General Hospital in Massachusetts. She had some severe headache, and she did it without any anesthesia, biting down on a bullet while they did surgery on her brain. That's our history. That's our history. They don't want that history to be the one you know, right? Because that's ours. So it's incumbent upon us to tell it. That's the reality. It's incumbent. They can ban all the books that they want. It is incumbent upon us to tell it. No other people leave for others to teach their history, and we can't either. And never been more important than it is today. Because if we don't tell it, it will not only be hidden, it will be criminalized to tell it.
I mean, it is something, everyone, because right now in Florida, they just had a debate. In the last week, last 7 days, they just had a debate on a bill that would ban, teaching Black history. And right now, the law requires that they teach it. And one of the opponents of teaching Black history, he got up there and said that if Black history was taught, that people had to specify that slaves were paid, Ernie. Slaves were paid. I mean, how evil is that? Because, what's the definition of a slave to begin with? Right. It's someone whose labor is stolen from them, who does not get paid for it. It's just evil, these people, these liars. And I think it's so important, if you're listening to the show today, to be resolved that Black history, women's history is 24/7, 365 days a year. Let's be determined. And Ernie, I was so impressed that I was at the Embalsa conference. That's the National Black Law Students Association, everyone. They met in Houston, and I was at their conference, and I saw the African American Policy Forum had tables of banned books. And I was so taken by the long lines of students, these law students who were trying to get copies of these beautiful banned books, like 1619 Project and The Color Purple, The Bluest Eye, who were trying to, oh my goodness, they were running around with under their arms the beautiful Critical Race Studies book. There was so much, that I saw, and I was just really taken by the hunger, the desire to learn. But why is it so important, Ernie, that AAPF has started, this movement, and TJC and so many others are involved in making sure that we give out banned books?
Barbara, I was at Howard University, and I'll tell you, the energy that these students had in the building. Literally, I saw them coming through the doors and going straight downstairs to where the banned books display was.
Yes.
And I heard conversations, between students who were in line and other students who were just walking by and didn't know what was going on. And these students were actually grabbing folks and pulling them over and giving them a very short summary of why this was so critical. And that just